Accept start, 5:07. If I can get this, call this meeting to order, work session, and get approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Mr. Resident, you want to start off?
Yes, sir,
You're on
Mr.
the-
Chairman.
On the bus right off the bat, right?
So this is just a continuation of the work session we had about a month ago, dealing with amending the text of the zoning ordinance for dealing with truck parking, and I think we had some discussion then about agricultural equipment and that type of thing, so.
Mr. Wood, you want to start off on the agriculture side? You've done
Sure.
some homework on this, and you
Yes,
kind
sir.
of get the head up.
I made a trip to the USDA office in Eatonton, Georgia today, and pretty much anything on a farm, on a qualified farm entity should be exempt. That's any truck, trailer involved in, to shorten it up, food or fiber production
Right.
is exempt. Any equipment or truck, trailer. So farms are completely
Separate
exempt.
entity.
So I think essentially what we're now talking about is individuals that drive a semi-truck for a living that park at their home. And, we need to apply some common sense to this because trucks are important and they're an essential part of our everyday life.
I've had a lot of contact of all places. The last one was at the Mexican restaurant. I had one table sitting there that was truck drivers and the other table of neighbors of truck drivers. And they were all the same consensus. They understood that the truck drivers, that was their living, and they come and they came home every night with a truck. At the end of the day, they both agreed that having a truck out of sight was a good. They all agreed that putting one on the side of the road is not the option. They both said that, and people just parking beside the road. We heard. I'm drawing blank. Carlos Andrews. Tim. We heard his concerns about people parking out on the side of the road, and I agree 100%. And that night, both tables agreed that having a common ground where the people could put their trucks behind the house to help hide it, they understood the importance of them going to work and whatnot. And we just need to find a common ground. And I've had just as many people on both sides, reach out to me with their concerns and how do we get around this. Anyone else?
Chairman, I'll say that, I looked at it kind of like our blight ordinance, from one standpoint is we talked about not having junk in the front yard, not having dilapidated vehicles, not having vehicles that wouldn't run, and this was a big conversation about what does in public view mean.
Sure.
It means that our intent is that when people ride down the roads of our community, they don't see an eyesore in the yard. And so we've allowed with the blight to put up a fence to block it, to put it in the backyard to block it, all these things. And so that and Tim did some good homework. I appreciate this, Tim. He did a survey of all the counties around us, and it looks like some of them either don't have ordinances to address it, meaning they allow it, or 4 or 5 of the 9 had specifically in theirs that parked in the rear, not in the front yard, or parked in the rear only.
What's your thought? I pick on you tonight.
My staff report had the suggestions,
I just,
and after the research that I did, I still stand behind my staff report, adding section 66.5. That would make it clear that bona fide agricultural operations are exempted from this ordinance. And then adding an exception to section 66.1, which would allow one commercial vehicle as a permitted use, or as an alternative to that, on page 3, I discussed having it as a conditional use where you could choose to look at them on a case-by-case basis. I didn't find that as in any of the surrounding jurisdictions. None of them were using a conditional use or special use permit for this purpose.
okay.
So explain that last part again, Tim, about a conditional use, meaning on a case by case, they would come to us or come to you guys for a conditional use.
Come to y'all. Yes, sir.
I'll be honest, I mean, that's not, I'm not saying I don't want to do our job. I just think if we make a solid policy now, I think it should be fair for everybody, because I think they just open us up the door for us, people to go, well, you approved it for that one, you didn't approve it for this one. There's no win for us in that situation. I would rather us agree to 100% the agricultural part, because as Commissioner Wood put it, that there's so many laws now that protect farmers and agricultural. I don't think there's anything that shouldn't be exempted there, but I'm not sure about the conditional use. I would rather look at it from if we're allowing one vehicle, that we just or we go back to the blight, that it's out of view from the public road.
You out of sight, out of mind.
It's a 6 in one hand, half a dozen the other. I don't want blight to have to go through this again, because we know, and I can speak very specifically to Kingsview Village, right? When I pull through there, I know down on the bottom of the curve, there's a guy with 3 or 4 trucks, and 2 of them have been there for a long time. Nobody's complained to my knowledge, right? But if that same truck was in his subdivision, it would have been resolved years ago. And that has to do with how people value their neighborhoods and people's understanding of the ordinances, right? Some people know that, hey, you're not supposed to park this truck here. And some people don't. And then some people are like, well, that's that man's livelihood, leave him alone, right? But then there are the other people who are really concerned about not only the physical nature of their neighborhoods, but also the resale value, right? Because that's the big thing that we always talk about, tax value, tax value. Nobody talks about that when it's time to pay taxes, but when it's time for something to be of detriment to the neighborhood, that's our key word driver. I don't know that a truck can fit behind everybody's house, not a loaded truck.
Right, some places it's impractical.
Yes.
It may be too wet, it may be too steep, it may be on top of the septic drain field, and that's
Absolutely.
not,
And so
spent
I struggle
fix.
with making them put it behind the house. The ordinance that was read the last time, I think in that particular neighborhood, the owner did what they were supposed to do. I just don't like seeing it. I understand that. There's no happy place for us, Sam. Somebody's going to be upset. I'm okay with saying, yes, you can bring your truck into your neighborhood. I'm perfectly okay with that. I don't live in any of those neighborhoods. And it's easy for me to say that. But I also have a CDL truck driver's license, and I would be upset if somebody told me that I couldn't bring my truck, especially if I'm bobtailing, into the neighborhood, right? And if I'm an owner-operator, I have every right to bring that truck to my house. I believe I do. Unless there was a covenant that existed before I bought my home, and I bought into that neighborhood, and it said no trucks in. That's on me.
That is a good point to clarify. Are we talking bobtail, because most of the trucks, if we're talking truck and trailer, are not rated for the weight anyway. So I think it would be much easier to park a cab in the backyard. And personally, I don't think we can get into, if the ordinance says it can't be in plain view or can't be in the front yard, and well, I can't because my backyard drops off, or then that's on them. It's just an ordinance that. But I get what you're saying about, and when do we grandfather things in? Well, I bought the house and there was no ordinance in place and all that kind of stuff. That's almost as bad as the conditional use.
Yeah, and I don't want to have to deal with this every week or every other week. I think the idea of the ordinance is that we solve the problem as best we can. It's not going to be perfect. Somebody's going to be upset.
There's always going to be one-offs that don't fit in that mold that are upset with it. What we signed up for.
citizen comments? You wanna, come on to introduce yourself that for the record. Make sure the light's on if you don't mind. All right.
Keith Mitchum, 235 Alden Road. I agree with you, where the complaint I made with Ms. Searles, where she's talking about parking her truck. First of all, it was just a cab, and they parked it, like you're saying, behind the house, behind the facade of the house. Never had an issue with it. When she started bringing the trailer home in the truck and the trailer and parked it across the front yard is when I had an issue. So if you can get them where you can't see them, I mean, that's my issue. It's just, if it's tucked back where it's not an eyesore, I don't have a problem with that. It's not just, I don't want to be somebody says, I just don't want to hear. That's not it. It's just, if I can't see it, it don't bother me. But, and as far as, like you said, like parking in your front yard, well, that's fine, but when you live in a community, you're not the only one there. If you want to do those types of things, then you should be in a bigger area, is my thing, I mean, but we just had to disagree on that. But like I say, I mean, if you put it where you can't see it, in hers, it's a truck and a trailer. And like I say, the ordinance was already here anyway, right? You couldn't do it to start with, so that part. But yeah, I'm fine with that. If you put it where it's not a public view, I don't have any issue with that.
And that's pretty much the whole, everybody I've talked with, just like at the restaurant the other night, everybody agreed, this is just be a good neighbor and try to,
Will this does this have anything to do with properties without dwellings on them? Can somebody just come to Jones County and buy an acre of land and start parking a truck on it?
I think at the end of the day, we need to have this ordinance cleaned up for wherever it may be.
I think there needs to be a lot of more, just
Right.
tedious stuff. And like, if you're going to park it in your backyard, I think acreage comes into play at some point. I mean, if you've got an acre and a half, you park it in the backyard, I mean, does it have to be so far off property line? It can be right up beside somebody else's house. These kinds of things I think need to be looked at.
And I think she mentioned that. She said, depending on, because of the way her lot was shaped, she says, I could put it in the backyard, but if somebody drives down the street, because of the way my lot is shaped, they're going to see it. And so that is the problem.
The street, you won't be able to see it. Well, she's talking about my driveway that runs
Okay.
beside her place. That's what I'm saying. Where she's talking about parking it on the other side, like she had it before. I never had a problem with a cab, never. He had parked a cab there for a while. It was when, like I said, when he brought the trailer home, and he parked it across the front yard. And so when I leave my house, and you can see it from the road. I showed you pictures. I don't know where she came up with it. You couldn't see it. But anyway, that's my thing. And like you were saying, if you got a piece of property you can't park it on, well, you can't park it then. I mean, it's just that simple. I mean, you should be able to park it in the front yard. I mean, but yeah, I'm happy if you can't see it. That was my whole issue. I mean, like,
any questions?
We still have the issue of, one question he just asked is if you don't have a dwelling on it, because that was a big conversation in the original part about putting, if not, so if we're talking about ag stuff is exempt and out of the question, should we now put that there has to be a dwelling on there if you're gonna bring a vehicle that you're using as, part of your business, it has to be a dwelling there? Yeah, Tim? I'm looking for professional advice, not just my thoughts.
How do we need to clean this up?
So my second paragraph on this page 2,
So he's gonna
1,
tell me
2,
he already
3,
addressed
4,
it and I didn't
5.
read it.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Tim.
Paragraph 5 addresses deleting the sentence, portion of the sentence that's in strike-through, occupied by a dwelling or any lot. By striking through that and placing the sentence in any agricultural or residential district, then that would have the effect of, you can park one vehicle on your lot, whether there's a dwelling on it or not, but it's going to limit you to one. Right now, if I have an agriculturally zoned lot and I own 3 trucks and I'm parking it on it and there's nothing else on that property, I don't consider that a violation of the zoning regulations unless I cross the threshold where now I'm operating a business from that location. So I've got employees and storing vehicles, that would become a different entity. But if I just got 1 or 2 vehicles, and they're both mine, I don't know that that would constitute a violation of the zoning regulations as presently written. So those are part of the 3 changes that I am recommending to this section to address that.
That would keep the 1 acre lot becoming a truck stop.
All right, I think I can, so,
I got a question.
good.
Is it bothering you?
So
I didn't eat lunch.
I
the,
didn't either.
the travel boats and campers are not going to be affected by this? Because I know that was a part of it.
Right now, the 66.2 on page 3, that's the existing verbiage, and that's listing what is allowed currently, and this would not affect that in any way.
Okay.
With the exception of, right now, if I had a vacant agricultural lot, then I can park the boat anywhere I want to. Now, this is just, I can already do that, it's just, this isn't gonna alter that.
So at the end of the day, Tim, it's saying, we're possibly saying one vehicle, not in the front yard, and we're not gonna do it on a case-by-case assessment.
To answer, well, I don't know, it depends on where y'all want to go. If you follow the recommendations in the staff report, you're going to authorize one commercial vehicle on every agriculturally zoned lot. That would not address your concern in Kingsview. The presentation that you've got here is just strictly was addressing what the applicant was asking for in the agricultural districts. And the incongruity she saw with what was actually happening versus what our ordinance called for. To the second part of what you said, talking about in the backyard, my specific recommendations do not include any kind of that. But paragraph 1 on page 3 does give you some things to consider about the specific guidelines for these parking areas, including setbacks, screening measures, trying to help mitigate that impact. But I did not make any specific recommendations on that. One concern I had with screening the area is those things are 12 feet tall. That's going to be,
Yeah.
you're not going to hide it behind a fence.
Trailer's 13.6.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
13.6.
So you're not going to hide it behind a fence. You could have significant existing vegetation, but that's not going to be the case on all agriculturally zoned lots.
And just for clarity, at 66.3, because I know when I ride up Grizzleville Road on my cycle, there are a couple little lots that have some of these little trailers on them. I don't know they're identified as campgrounds. If it's not designated as a campground, but it's ag, and I know people in Jones County live in trailers on large tracts of land.
Because you have hunting camps that multiple, I mean, you get into a whole nother discussion there. What if somebody uses their RV or a camper while they're remodeling their house to stay on the property to keep things from walking off?
That's another conversation.
Right.
That's a whole big other conversation that is not being addressed at all by this amendment. The change to this section will not affect what's happening with recreational vehicles today, or if this is adopted today, will not affect it tomorrow.
All right, because it was under staff report on page 3, that's why I asked. I was like,
Looking on page 3 that is the current law, so I wanted you to have a copy of that section as the
Okay.
law is today. Section 66.3 does address recreational vehicles. This change will not affect that.
Correct.
So if you don't like that, you need another change.
Hey, nobody's complained in my district to my knowledge, but
We
I
work-
know that they exist.
We work
Right.
lots of occupied recreational vehicle complaints.
Sure, you do. Okay.
So this is sitting on the agenda tonight, so we'll have to put, if the board wishes to change this for staff report recommendations, it'll be the next meeting, correct?
Tim, take us to the process for a text amendment to the zoning ordinance. It goes to the P and Z board first, right, and then we come back?
It's already done.
Okay, that's all.
We've started that process. Right now, you've got sorry, I can't remember if it's 120 or 180-day clock ticking on y'all. And if you don't take action, then the recommendation of the planning commission will stand. And I don't have the dates in front of me to tell you where we're about 2 months into that process now. So we still got 2 to 4 more months to go before that clock will expire.
We're in the, at this point, is it we can't vote on it, but
Right.
everybody pretty much in agreement, the staff recommendation?
The only drawback I see is, according to this one commercial vehicle, of any, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, any weight is permitted on a lot, any lot in the agricultural district, 66.1, but yours, so this one's just saying that it's legitimately under agricultural operation or sanction, so those are off the table. Then the as a conditional use, which we don't want to do. So this, it looks like page 3 talks about commercial vehicles in residential district, except in accordance with the following. On the last page, we talk about strictly in agriculture, right?
So, if you look on page 3, the first paragraph that starts off, commercial vehicles and travel trailers of all types, that would become comprehensive that'd make it clear it applies to all property in the agricultural district and all residentially zoned property. Not just an agricultural lot with a dwelling on it. Makes it clear that that's what it applies to, so it takes out the nebulous aspect of could you park a single commercial vehicle on a vacant agricultural lot.
Just thinking outside the box on 66.1 as far as your recommendation, it doesn't override the fact of the weight limit on the road, meaning it says of any weight, so it doesn't,
That's outside of the scope of my department. I don't understand how, if it's legal to have it on your property with a weight restriction on the road, would that keep it out? I couldn't speak to that.
well, you know, the limit, I don't think a loaded 80,000 pound truck or, as we know, 100,000 pound load of logs coming into the area.
But Chris, you can, and I hear what Tim is saying. Someone's gonna say, you allow it at my house, how the hell you think I'm gonna get it there? Our citizens are pretty smart. Allocate.
Most of the trucks that are listed here, though, like 15 tons, will accommodate most any empty tractor trailer on the
So
road,
you wanna put a weight limit on it?
on the emptiness. Yeah, I'm,
Yeah, good.
you know, the state's already granted them pretty much $100,000 pound, have added on our county road. We're getting repaid dearly on that because but personally, I know 15 ton will cover most any tractor and trailer empty.
Empty. That's
So
it.
we don't want to exceed the, you know, we don't want to grant them 100,000 pounds of logs in their driveway. I'm just, you know,
I agree with you.
I think it needs to stay within the limits of the road. You know, if it's posted 15 tons, they're gonna stay within those limits on the empty side.
Sounds good. I just came up Jercliff Road and there was a guy with a tractor trailer with 12 cars.
Sitting in the middle of the road at
Sure
the top of a
was.
hill.
Yeah,
We
it
almost hit him in the
And he's
butt.
not supposed to be on that road. That's the only reason why I bring that up.
So it needs to be within the, I think the only thing needs to be changed, but within the limits of the road. If it's 15 tons,
Because you gotta think about your bridges. You don't wanna
yeah.
have a bridge go down with a truck going across it because
Yeah.
he can't read or didn't read. Or
We cover the truck. the
I was
truck.
gonna say, I was confused when we first started talking. Now I'm really confused when we start talking about roads and weights and bridges. Because the way our ordinance reads right now, none of it can happen. We gotta change that, we know, right?
Right.
All right, so are we changing it where one vehicle, because we're taking out agriculture, we've all kind of
Ag's exempt.
agreed, ag's out. So that part of Tim's recommendation, right off the bat, done. We move past that one. So now we're talking about one vehicle in a residential, commercial, or agricultural area, right? Not residential.
Not
Just talking about
residential.
agricultural.
Agriculture only. Residential, you can't do it. That's why we got these truck lots
Then-
around here.
Right, then we're changing 66.1 says commercial vehicles and trailers of all types, including travel, boat, camping, hauling trailers, shall not be parked or stored on any lot occupied by a dwelling or any lot in any residential district, except for in these situations. Well, we're fixing to change these situations, which is gonna say, to me, that we're gonna be able to park this truck in that residential area because it'll now be qualified under one of these 66, 2, 3, or 4.
What you just read is going to be altered to make it clear that it applies to agricultural
Agricultural.
and residentially zoned properties. And then we would add an exception that says, in the agricultural district, you are allowed one vehicle not to exceed the posted weight limit of the road the property is served by, something to that effect.
Make it clear.
That authorizing that one commercial vehicle in the agricultural district. And then it could also have in there whatever caveats you want about buffering, must be in the rear yard, anything like side yard only, something like that.
All right, that's got that part of it for me. I'm good with that. So we're talking about one vehicle, commercial. Do we want to put a restriction on the same as the blight, either out of sight, out of the front yard, or, you know?
I think it's already covered about being must be, maybe it needs to be real clear about must be operational. 'Cause we do have certain parts of the county where half the hood's missing, the tire's flat.
Well, I think that goes into
Yeah, the blight.
the junk vehicle, right?
We have a definition of a junk vehicle that would be, it would already, if that vehicle was not operational, it would qualify as a junk vehicle. It wouldn't
Right.
qualify as this one commercial vehicle.
Yeah, I just want to make sure it's clear because we have areas in the county.
So we're
that-
clear on ag land, one vehicle, weight of the road restricted. We got to decide on whether it's going to be out of the front yard or out of sight. And then the last thing is, do you have to have a house on the property? Three of them. We only got two
Two more
to
left.
go. We got two to go.
Well, I mean, there's some areas in Bradley where individuals drive a truck for a living. That's their lifeblood. They back it in off the road. If you ride by, you'll never see it because it's backed in neatly in the trees on a vacant piece of property. I have no problem with that. If you ride down the road, even look like this, you won't see it. It's backed in the trees. It's tucked away.
Yeah.
And that's their lifeblood. So we
I
want
don't
to
have a
protect
problem with
those.
that either because
So-
we're limited in one truck. So
Right.
we're
Yeah.
not going to wind
Yeah,
up
that's
with
all it
10
is, one
trucks
truck.
on
And maybe a
3
container
acre
behind
lot.
it.
So it sounds like y'all are fine at being dwelling or vacant lot. So there's
One
4
truck.
out of your
And
5.
I think Tim's addressed that in
Yeah.
where it cleans it up.
Right.
Yeah.
With the language that,
I personally like same as, to keep it simple, like our blight ordinance, out of view of a public road.
I agree. I think people can do that, to be good neighbors, can, try to obscure. If it don't fit on the lot, you need to take it somewhere else anyhow. But, Commissioner Martin, you got a smile on your face, would you?
I was just thinking about our attorney who, had the truck that they were working on and somebody complained about it. And are we going to run into that as well? The reason why my second truck is here is because my first truck is down and it's being worked on.
Can't have a one truck.
I agree with you, but this one's being worked on and I couldn't move it because it was disabled. I'm just asking a question. I'm playing my last devil's advocate because that's the last thing that I want to
Can't
hear.
shop and have it fixed.
I'm agreeing with you all the way. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, because if it says one vehicle, it shouldn't have but two. It shouldn't have two.
I'm okay with that. I'm good.
Commissioner Bone, you, don't want to leave you out.
No, I'm good.
did you
Tim's
have
got-
something to say?
Normally, when I cite a violation, I say, okay, you got 30 days to get the vehicle off the property. So if it's not fixed in 30 days, then we're going to escalate. So maybe he's sitting there working on it for a couple of days, and then it's going to be gone. By the time we got him to court, it's going to be resolved. Just a thought on that.
Yeah. Because I can't remember her situation, but it sounds like they had one truck, but the minute one goes down, the second truck shows up. I'm working on that truck and I'm using this truck, so I'm good.
So they're going to have a time limit.
30 days.
That's right.
I'm
And,
good.
and they do understand what is not sight by road. When you're talking about that it's not gonna be parked in front of their house.
It's just like a blight ordinance.
Just obscured from the so if obscured from the public's on the side, they can park it on the side, or on the
Yeah.
back, they can park it in the back. But,
I'm not familiar with the blight ordinance and
Okay.
those standards. For a lot of the stuff we do, it just says can't be in the front yard.
Right.
That's clearly defined in my ordinance, so if I've got a corner lot, I know that it can't be on this side or this side. It's gotta be in the side yard or the rear yard. As far as being obscured from view, I don't have a clear understanding of what that definition is.
It's gonna be hard because, I mean, long,
From a public road,
yeah.
not from view, because view, you can go in the neighbor's yard or climb a tree across the country.
I just think that they're trying to be a good neighbor, and, you know, in the backyard.
Right.
It's, I think they've, you know, showed their,
so do y'all want it to say obscured from view from the public road, or do y'all want it to say not in the front yard?
we got number 6, Commissioner. Here.
No, that's still not part of number 5.
Okay.
Am I getting another one? We got 4 down.
I don't care, I personally don't care for it in the front yard. But now, if you live a quarter mile off the road, you know,
So-
who's gonna see it? It kinda cures itself with the, you know, obscured from public view at that point. But,
And obviously, other counties are having one. One says not parked in the backyard, in the front yard.
Yeah.
One says parked in the rear yard. One says parked or stored behind the front yard building line. They do say one vehicle in a lot of them.
Right. I think not in the front yard would be wouldn't that be the easiest to enforce?
Yes, that's clearly defined in the ordinance. I know what that means.
Right.
We could, if somebody was 1,000 feet off the road and it was not visible from the any public right of way, maybe in that situation, it would be acceptable in the front yard
Right.
because nobody
Right.
can see it. It's not harming the public.
yeah.
Everybody good on that one?
Y'all fine with that?
As long as I don't have to make that motion.
So that's number 5.
That's it. We're good.
Anything else at this work session? We need anything else?
So
from you?
can we put it on the agenda for approval at the next meeting? And then
Go from there.
Or
maybe
just
Tim
go
will
through
have
the,
those
whatever little changes he has to make.
So just to reiterate, so we're looking at
Citizen.
one commercial vehicle of any weight as long as it doesn't exceed the posted weight limit of the road served by the parcel. May not be located in the front yard or may not be visible. Something like may not be visible from the public right of way, or if it is, it may not be in the front yard, something along those lines.
Right.
He
Okay.
has a question.
Okay, you got, come on back. People at home watching. Okay.
When you do pass, if we pass this, how long do you have to comply? The reason I'm saying, because I don't wanna, well, it's gonna take me a year to get this moved and that moved and this line moved and this tree cut down. So when you pass, is it pass then?
Yep.
Okay, all right, that, and I was just curious about something. What, and this is probably, Tim, what constitutes a residential district?
Zoning ordinance. We've got a map and it's got everything.
When I read that, it makes it look like I can't have a residential district if I live in an agricultural zoned area.
That's correct.
And my place is called White Oaks, we have White Oaks Plantation subdivision.
Those
That
are
is-
two separate zoning classifications, so you won't have residential classification inside of an agricultural classification.
Okay, that answers my question.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all. Thanks a lot.
Anything else?
No, that's why Tim's does it the way he does it. He knows how to make it work.
Tim's
right.
good?
I make a motion to adjourn work session.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Really?
Great work, Tim.